That breaking news, reaction pouring into the historic verdict. Former President Trump found guilty on all counts in his hush money trial in New York. It makes him the first former president in the U.S. history to be convicted of a crime. A jury found Trump guilty on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. It's connected to money his former fixer Michael Cohen paid to adult film star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. Prosecutors argued Trump reimbursed Cohen but disguised the payments as legal expenses, which they say amounted to a criminal scheme to corrupt the election. The presumptive Republican nominee for president expressed his anger outside court and vowed to fight the conviction.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial, but the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people, and they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here.
While this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors.
And keep this in mind, sentencing is set for July 11th, just 4 days before the Republican National Convention, where Trump could be formally nominated. Each count carries a sentence up to 4 years in prison and a $5,000 fine, but it will be up to the judge to decide. President Biden released a statement reacting to the verdict that reads in part, in New York today, we saw that no one is above the law. Donald Trump has always mistakenly believed he would never face consequences for breaking the law for his own personal gain. But today's verdict does not change the fact that the American people face a simple reality. There is still only one way to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office: at the ballot box. All right, a big afternoon and now into the evening. We're joined now by Professor Rory Little of the UC College of the Law to help break down this verdict. And that's very telling when President Biden's saying we're going to see the change, if possible, at the ballot box, because clearly this doesn't affect anyone's presidential run, correct?
Well, it doesn't stop Donald Trump from running, and it doesn't stop him from being elected. Constitutionally, anybody can be elected president. We'll see whether it changes anybody's minds or not, but I think most people have their minds made up. It's still very refreshing to see a criminal trial up close. These trials happen every day in this country, and Donald Trump was treated just like every other defendant. I think that is really the most important thing, is for Americans to see the justice system work. It's slow. It's not very exciting sometimes. And 12 people agreed unanimously to find him guilty on 34 counts. You probably won't see any prison time. I would be surprised. He's a first-time offender, nonviolent crime. You might see a fine of, $150,000 stacked up on top, but that's not going to slow Donald Trump down.
Let's talk about the weight of this. How does this compare to other charges he faces in other cases he faces?
Well, maybe the most important thing is that this case is resolved now as opposed to after the election. I think those other cases are not going to be resolved until the election is finished. And at that point, they will have less of an impact, obviously. They're still very important cases. The federal case having to do with January 6th is awaiting decision from the U.S. Supreme Court on whether he has immunity. They're almost certainly going to rule he is not immune from prosecution, but then they're going to send it back to the trial court for further proceedings, and that's going to slow things down. The case in Florida, the classified documents case, that judge, who's a young Trump appointee, is doing everything she can to slow that case down. That's not going to happen until probably after the new year. So these cases are not affected by this verdict in any way. But they're a lot slower.
Well, it's certainly uncharted territory. Let's talk about Trump's reaction. Probably no surprise. He was calling it rigged. He was attacking the Biden administration. But what does this do, do you think, to his fan base? How are they processing all of this right now?
Well, his fan base, believe him. There's no evidence whatsoever that the district attorney in Manhattan has any relationship with the Biden administration. In fact, they're trying to keep as far apart from each other as they can. Here he is in a false documents case, this false business records case, saying things on TV that are false. the trial wasn't rigged. People got to see this trial. There were lots of people in the courtroom, news reporters there every day. It went just like every other trial. So, but it's not going to change anything in terms of perception. People have already decided whether they're going to vote for Biden or Trump. We've got debates coming, before his sentencing. They'll have a debate on television, Trump and Biden. So it's hard to believe really that this does anything other than it signifies really that no person is above the law. And I think that's an important legal lesson for people to understand. All right. Professor Rory Little, thank you so much for your time this evening. I'm sure we'll be checking back with you in the weeks to come. Thank you. All right. So now let's get to our Amanda Hari in Pleasanton. Of course, the big question is, how are voters going to react? So, Amanda, what are you hearing from people that you've talked to today?
People have been saying a range of things. Many people thought he would receive some guilty counts, but everyone I talked to said they didn't think that all 34 counts would come down as guilty. A barrage of media notifications that stopped many people in their tracks. Former President Donald Trump found guilty of 34 felonies by the jury in his hush money trial in New York. Reactions from people in Pleasanton were mixed.
Not terribly surprised.
I went, wow, because I was not sure that they would do it.
Corey Morgenthaler says he was sitting in a cafe when the verdict came down and immediately opened up an article to learn more.
I didn't expect the full 34 counts, so I'm a little bit surprised there, but I was kind of expecting there to be a guilty outcome, at least a little bit.
He says this result isn't changing who he's supporting for president, but he thinks it may change some other people's opinions.
I think with him being a convicted felon, I think that there's going to be some impact there. I don't know if it'll, change the outcome one way or another, but I think it'll definitely sway some of the votes.
But Angela Whipfley has a different opinion.
According to the polls I've seen, everything else he's done does not impact his poll numbers.
She agrees with Morgenthaler that it won't change her vote.
If it was going to impact my voting, it would have done it in 2016 when that Access Hollywood tape came out.
Morgenthaler believes Trump may even lean into the verdict.
He's kind of a master propagandist for, better and worse. I think he'll definitely take advantage of it in the media as much as he can. But I think that the American people have, sense about them, and they'll take this, most of them will take this for what it is, which is a felony count.
All right, reaction coming from people there in the community of Pleasanton. We also heard today from the chairman of the Contra Costa Republican Party, who says this might activate more moderate Republicans who believe the whole trial was a misuse of the judicial system.
I wouldn't like to see this type of prosecution taken on against an ex-Democrat president either. It's a sad day for our legal system.
Former President Trump is expected to visit the Bay Area 1 week from today. He will be attending a campaign fundraiser in San Francisco. Thursday's event will be hosted by two high-profile tech investors. An invite to the event reportedly costs $500,000 per couple.